But then what does it mean to be a citizen in such a government? And here's the most radical statement of all. Notice, by the way, none of these statements are addressed to you as Americans. They are addressed to mankind as a whole. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, and what ends are we talking about? Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. It is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. We have the right to change our government or to institute a new government laying its foundation on such principles and organizing powers and its powers in such form as to them may seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. This is where King George is going to get really worried. But it's logically arrived at. And it's not simply an American arrival. It's a visionary statement for the world. The men who signed this document, and two of them, if I can move my mouse over here, well, I just got it here. John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, will become presidents of this new nation. These same people who were painted so augustly by John Trumbull, the painter, they were 18th century men. They were colonists who had a bone to pick with England. No question about that. But more importantly, they were men inspired by the universal truths they read, stated here so magnificently. They felt deeply about these words. These words were worth pledging, in their words, their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to defend. Today, each of you seniors will be presented with a beautiful copy of these crucial words. Hopefully, they'll guide and inspire you as you move deeper into this new century. They challenge all of us to be worthy of them. Thank you.
Many of you have been in Mr. Beim's classroom, and I know you've seen the photographs that he's taken of the homes of all the presidents. And of course, if you've been in my classroom, no doubt you've seen the portraits of the founding fathers and on the wall. And you've probably seen this flag, which came from my classroom, or these framed documents here, the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights. So you know how happy Mr. Beim and I are that Mr. Koch asked us to speak with you this morning. In fact, all of your social studies teachers, Mr. Evans, Mr. Green, Mr. Lindsay, Mr. Preston, would love to be in our place today, sharing with you their love for these documents. We're all storytellers. And for those of you who've had a class with me, either in history or economics or world geography, you're about to hear a story that you've never heard me tell before. And this is it. The signing of the Constitution. This painting is by Howard Christie. It's remarkably accurate. It's generally considered the single best ever picture created of the American founding. It was painted 150 years after the actual event. And it currently is, it's 20 foot by 30 foot, and it hangs in the east stairway of the House of Representatives in the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. So if you're there, you can go see it. And in here, you can see Washington. He's the tallest figure with the light shining on him. Down here, we have Madison, Franklin, and Hamilton, and Morris is in here, and many of the other founding fathers, all depicted as though someone had just had a camera and could capture the moment back on September 17th, 1787. Now, if you're looking for Thomas Jefferson or John Adams, you won't find them. Why did the artist leave them out? Well, it would have been a mistake to put them in. Adams was ambassador to England. Jefferson was ambassador to France. They simply weren't there. However, I thought you might be interested in what those two men, the men most responsible for producing the Declaration of Independence, had to say about the Constitution. John Adams. The Constitution is the greatest single effort on national deliberation that the world has ever seen. I first saw the Constitution of the United States in a foreign country. I read it with great satisfaction as the result of good heads prompted by good hearts, as an experiment better adapted to the genius, character, situation, and relations of this nation and country than any which had ever been proposed. I have repeatedly laid myself under the most serious obligations to support the Constitution. What other form of government, indeed, can so well deserve our esteem and love? That's actually from his inaugural address. And Jefferson, may you and your contemporaries preserve inviolate the Constitution, which, cherished in all its chastity and purity, will prove in the end a blessing to all the nations of the earth. So, okay, that explains the whereabouts of Adams and Jefferson. However, there actually were 55 delegates from the various states who met in Philadelphia that hot summer of 1787 to write the Constitution. If you look closely at this picture, there are only 39 pictured in the painting. Why? Well, again, the reason is simple. The missing 16 either left early or refused to sign it. Now, that would explain why Christie left them out of his painting. But is there a story behind these 16 mysteriously missing delegates? Oh, yes. In fact, the story of the Constitution is one of the most remarkable in all of history, and the missing 16 hold the key to it. As Mr. Beim tells us, every good story has certain critical elements that make it a compelling one. You have to have interesting characters. You need some conflict, a climax, hopefully a resolution. And as you may have guessed, what happened to the missing 16? That's going to be the climax. But I'm not going to start there. Instead, let's begin with the characters. Move quickly to the conflict and see how it was resolved. Now, since we only have a brief time before the presentation of the documents, let's introduce you to just 3 of these 39 who did sign the Constitution on September 17th, 1787. Okay, the first is George Washington. He presided over the convention, the only man to ever be elected president unanimously, universally known as the father of the country. It appears to me, he says, little short of a miracle that the delegates from so many different states should unite in forming a system of national government so little liable to well-founded objections. The adoption of the Constitution will demonstrate as visibly the finger of providence as any possible event in the course of human affairs can ever designate it. The Constitution approaches nearer to perfection than any government hitherto instituted among men. The Constitution is really, in its formation, a government of the people. No government before introduced among mankind ever contained so many checks and such efficacious restraints to prevent it from degenerating into any species of oppression. The balances arising from the distribution of the legislative, executive, and judicial powers are the best that have ever been instituted.